What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns back with you, back from Indianapolis, and ready for moves, which are already happening. Johnsy.
We did it again. Just to be clear, this is a recording of a recording. Does that make sense?
Well, it's a re-recording.
Re-recording of a recording.
Yeah.
You got to emphasize the re-recording. There we go.
So we did a full episode this morning. We're recording this now on Tuesday afternoon. We talked about Trey Smith. We talked about offensive line stuff. We had a great interview with Nate Tice, which we're still going to bring you. And then we ended the podcast by basically joking about how as soon as we got done with the pod, the Bears would make a trade. That's exactly what happened.
It really happened.
That's exactly what happened. I mean,
Different player, we could actually post that same position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about Trey Smith. We're unlikely traded Trey Smith, but that's what we were talking about. And then we're like, well, we'll will it into existence by saying it won't happen, and then it'll immediately happen. And instead, it was Jonah Jackson, who is now or will be officially a Bear next Wednesday.
My initial reaction is that Ben Johnson must have a ton of influence on everything right now. And that's okay. It should be that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt Eberflus had influence too on the defense when he came in. I mean, this is a normal thing for head coaches that come in, and you want fits. You want guys that that you have experience with. It was the defensive end, and they signed Matt Eberflus's first year. That was like a complete bust, but he came over from Indy. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes. El-Quadin Muhammad.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say Jonah Jackson's that. I actually like this signing. I'm just saying this is a very normal thing to be happening.
So a little background then. Ben Johnson and Jonah Jackson were together for 4 years. 2 of those being him as an offensive coordinator, but this dates back to Ben Johnson being on Matt Patricia's staff.
Yeah.
The Rams then signed Jonah Jackson last offseason to a 3-year, $51 million contract. The Lions did try to re-sign him, but obviously the market was the market, and he left in free agency. The Lions later then extended Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, their starting right tackles. And they also signed Kevin Zeitler to replace Jonah Jackson as a starter, but that caused a reshuffling. Graham Glasgow, local guy, was moved to left guard, while Zeitler took over at right guard and then had a great season in many aspects for the Lions, while Jonah Jackson struggled with a shoulder injury, played in only 4 games, and was benched.
Correct. Yeah, he suffered an injury in training camp that he tried to come back from at the start of the regular season, and then made it worse, and then missed a bunch of time. So this is a significant but not massive swing, I'd say. The money's interesting. It's not a cheap contract. You mentioned, Johns, about how the Lions weren't able to keep him. He got more on the open market last year than we thought. And I think more than the Lions thought. So we're talking $17.5 million guaranteed this year with a roster bonus that's about to kick in next week. But next year, there's nothing that's guaranteed. So this is the type of financial flexibility you have right now to maybe overpay a little bit for a year. But I think if healthy, and I don't think the Bears will be making this move if he's not, going to be fully recovered from this issue he had last year. It's a pretty solid move. And it doesn't stop you from doing anything else that you might want to do.
He was a Pro Bowler a few years ago. So the talent is there. The potential is there. Something obviously didn't fit. Something obviously went wrong with LA. They allowed him to seek a trade, and obviously he found the best partner in the Bears and Ben Johnson. It makes sense in a lot of fronts for the Bears. I like bringing in free agents where you have ties with them. That doesn't always work out, as you just referenced with the Matt Eberflus example. That said, I think we should all give Ben Johnson the benefit of the doubt on this. Should we not? This is just where we are in terms of evaluating his decision-making, his acquisitions. This is a big one. New starting left guard. Trades are always notable. But you could see why the Bears made this move.
Yeah, it's a fit. There's familiarity. I know I read in your guys' story on The Athletic that Jordan Rodriguez had some insight that Sean McVay lauded Jonah Jackson for how he handled the injury and losing his starting job. They give him permission to seek a trade. This one makes a lot of sense. And again, I want to emphasize, like, I don't. So in the episode we recorded earlier, Jahns asked me, about this sort of fantasy idea that's still out there that the Bears could still get Trey Smith. And I brought up, how maybe it just got to the point where the Chiefs, where Trey Smith's side said, hey, look, we're going to go to the open market, see what the value is. And they realized that if that happened, they weren't going to be able to keep him. So then you at least tag them, and you're going to get something back then if you have to trade them. I think it's more likely they'll work something out. But the point I'm trying to connect this with the Jackson trade is, if that unlikely scenario still plays out, you can still do that. You only give up a 6th-round pick here. It's not a ton of you're not tied up for the future financially. And even if you don't do that, you can still draft Will Campbell in the 1st round. There's still a lot of things you can do here that this doesn't necessarily stop you from doing.
The Bears are very much in the market for starting a right guard.
Yeah,
we should just make that abundantly clear. Even though they just acquired Jonah Jackson and he has a decent contract, the Bears should still be very interested in what the right guard market holds. And we know Trey Smith has history playing right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs.
And
Kevin Zeitler, right guard for the Lions.
Well, that's another thing. If you want to sign Kevin Zeitler too, you can. Now you got both of them. Other breaking news coming across the wire right now that I'm a little surprised by. According to Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, the Bears are not tendering restricted free agent linebacker Jack Sanborn.
That is interesting. That's your guy. How do you feel about this?
Well, here's why I'm surprised, because I was told last week that the Bears still view him as a starting caliber linebacker who just happened to be their 3rd linebacker. And that there was some concern that other teams around the league would also view him as a starting caliber linebacker, jacking up his price. So I took that as I was expecting him to at least tender Sanborn on the lowest end to make an effort to keep him. So I don't know.
You don't know what to make of it.
Thing? Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised by it, to be honest with you.
Well, this is what happens when you have new coaching staffs come in. They want their own players. They want to sign their own undrafted free agents, which is what Jack Sanborn was. That was a hit. That was a hit for the Bears. Jack Sanborn signing. It's interesting. I think he will have a market. Maybe the Bears didn't want to compete with that. Restricted free agency is a bit different than unrestricted free agency, but maybe he wanted to leave himself.
Yeah, I just it wouldn't cost too much to put even like a 2nd-round tender on him. Maybe he's not going to make that much on the open market. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see his value. I mean, that's part of why I was asking around last week about it, because he's been a fan favorite since he's been here. When he got thrown in there in 2022 as a rookie that had to play as a starter, everyone thought he played pretty well. They go out and they spend a lot of money on Tremaine Edmonds, who is another guy we actually talked about in the episode earlier today. And I've always had it sort of in the back of my mind that, like, if you hadn't signed Edmonds and you just paired Sanborn with TJ Edwards, would it really look that much different? I mean, look, Sanborn has some speed limitations and all that, but he makes up for a lot of that with his instincts, and he's always around the football. I mean, he's just a football player.
I think
You
Kevin
usually
Fishbane.
don't want to let guys like that go.
This is where you need to bring Kevin Fishbane in because he has like this splash play per snap thing with Sanborn, and it was like the ratio of it was outstanding. Just you noticed him when he was on the field. You noticed him making plays. You noticed him around the football. You noticed him flying around maybe more than a Tremaine Edmonds would, despite the contract, despite the draft selection, despite those differences. So, yeah, I don't know. Curious move by the Bears, but at the same time, I think we could put a lot of things in this category: is new coaches, new regime, new decision makers in place. This is what happens: out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it on record right now that if he goes on to be if this ends up being a Zach Bond situation, I'm gonna be highly annoyed.
Now the Eagles need a new starting middle linebacker because Zach Bond is an unrestricted free agent.
And it's probably going to get paid. All right. We'll keep an eye on that one. I'll certainly be watching where Sanborn goes and how that all plays out. And it could be wrong, because obviously the Bears thought if they did play him 100% of the snaps, it wouldn't go well.
Guess we'll never know.
Maybe they'll be right. Maybe they'll be right. I'm a little surprised by that one, though. All right. Anything else we want to touch on before we talk to Nate Tice?
No, I think there's a lot of good stuff here from Nate Tice that is very much still relevant. You'll hear some nuggets on Kevin Zeitler, who he played college football with.
Yep.
How about that? So, yeah, Tice is the best.
Yeah, just a reminder, this was recorded before the trade today for Jonah Jackson. So if I don't think too much of it's outdated. This conversation is kind of all over the place with free agency and NFL draft prospects, but maybe some tweaks here and there with the news. But like I said earlier, I don't really think that this trade precludes the Bears from doing anything else. So here it is. Awesome conversation, as always, with Nate Tice.
Hey,
what's up? What's up, Nate?
Nate,
what's
up?
going on? I'm alive. I'm doing great. How are you? I had to send. I was going to come on the show last week, and I had to send Adam a text going, my face was blotched red. I was swollen up. Apparently, I have a shellfish allergy. So St. Elmo's, not a good trip for Nate Tice at age 35. A lot more fun when I was younger, but apparently when you get older, your allergies change. And yeah, so pretty interesting morning, but I'm doing great. Great to see you
now,
guys.
like when we saw you the night before you were supposed to come on at Elmo's.
Yep.
You were having dinner with Golick.
Yep.
And when Adam told me that you weren't coming out because you were sick, we were wondering if it was the old combine flu. Maybe.
I wish it was. I know how to handle the combine flu. As someone that has bobbed and weaved with that combine flu many of times, including earlier that week, I and was still strong. I went to Wisconsin. My dad's taught me the way. I was a coach and everything, and yeah, that's why I was like a little embarrassed to even text Adam. I was just like, I can't. Like I was like, I can't. Like I just can't be seen in public right now. I'm about to die. Took 3 Benadryl. Took a 5-hour nap. Great. Felt great afterwards, but it's all good. All's well that ends well.
I diagnosed it pretty quickly because he's like, I think I have an allergy. I'm like, well, I hope it wasn't the shrimp last night.
And it was.
And
wow,
and that's what it was.
Yeah, we're in theory. I'm gonna get some allergy testing the next month, so we'll be good. Just I'll avoid some shellfish I live in the desert, so it should be easy.
That's true.
Right?
Not a lot of shrimp unless it's like one of those buffets.
I'm not shucking oysters anytime soon. Yeah, I'll be all right.
All right. Well, let's talk about what you learned at the combine, and can we start with free agency? Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just wondering specifically what you think. Let's talk O-line. We were just having the dream talk about Trey Smith. Whatever sliver of hope there still is to making that work out, which doesn't seem likely after the tag. But if we kind of pivot to some of the other options, let's talk Drew Dahlman for instance. Do you feel like that would be a fit for the Chicago Bears? And this might be a situation where you have to overpay a little bit because there's just not a lot of centers available this year.
Yeah.
Is that something you would recommend the Bears do with? I mean, quite frankly, Ben Johnson was pretty adamant last week talking publicly that like, yeah, we got to get the center thing figured out for Caleb Williams.
I love it. Just keep that keep pounding that table. Our Super Bowl, I felt like we talked 15 minutes straight about the center play. No, I think I obviously, and I think he just being with Frank Ragnow and being a Sean Payton guy and what those Saints teams were like those. Not that he was there, but just with Sean Payton and the new offensive line coach being a Saints guy as well, is that the center does so much in this offense that's why it's so important to have a guy that you trust. Dahlman, you can trust. I'm a little lower on him, maybe the consensus right now, but it's a thing of need right now. I think he's an average level center. He's better than what the Bears have had, but I think he's just still average, which scares me when you pay him big money, because then you get to that point maybe in a year or two where like, maybe we should upgrade from this, but we already gave him a lot of money. He's kind of our guy. We've kind of anointed him. So there's that. That's why you don't want to be a very needy team for a spot that doesn't have a lot of guys out there. So Dahlman's not my favorite answer as far as center, but it is kind of the best of a bad bunch, as you guys kind of probably made out. Ben Johnson has kind of said that he wants to adapt the offense to whatever his personnel is. I view him more as a Peyton guy, which means he likes size at center and size and offensive line and more gap scheme stuff. Maybe that's just because I don't have a lot of creativity in my brain. But picturing what the Lions offensive line was, and then the previous Saints offensive lines, like those lines, big. And yeah, they can move and everything, but they're more power driven. They look like Darnell Wright, as opposed to guys that are more, Jake Matthews for the Falcons, the left tackle there, more finessey. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if Dahlman's that perfect one-to-one fit there, but again, they might have that need to get there. A guy not at center, but a guy that's maybe lower market that I really like for maybe the Bears is Ben Bredeson, the left guard from the Bucs, because I think I think he's a solid starter that you can get at a decent contract and don't have to break the bank. That's one on top of maybe drafting to address the interior offensive line. But I'm with you guys. I've been trying to figure out the center market and try and say like who I would go after. And I'm kind of indifferent on a lot of these guys because I think they have some blemishes that maybe just don't make them as a clean fit to like, yeah, I want to pay this guy because you can do this, this, and this. Dahlman has a lot of warts, I think, because of his size, had some inconsistencies. And then even this year, the guy that replaced him in the injuries kind of played just as well at times. And that's always a little scary for me as well when I've seen that guy hit free agency. So sorry to throw cold water on it, but just my little thoughts about the center. That's why even when we talked at the Super Bowl, Adam, I was thinking more that they go youth and maybe round 2 and try and find a guy to build around the future, because I like that option as opposed to the free agency door.
And it looks like there's going to be competition for Dahlman. You look at the Patriots; they need help in the trenches too. They have more salary cap space. They could just spend on whatever they want. They should not lose a bidding war to any team. They have more cap space than the Bears. Like you mentioned, favorite options. So, would your favorite option, would you try to focus on a Gray Zabel or someone early in the second round, maybe move up late in the first to try to find that answer?
I would use one of those second round picks, 39 or 41. I think there's a crop of. I like this O-line class. I don't think there's the high end talent like there was last year, where I had like 4 offensive tackles in my top 12 or something like that. I think this year is a lot of that late first, second round types where it's the good, solid starter, which I actually think lines up where the Bears are. But like a guy like Donovan Jackson, I'm not talking centers here, from Ohio State, guard or tackle. But then Gray Zabel is the guy, but he's getting so much love. I think Dane had him now in the top 25. I think my midseason big board, I had him at 40 overall. So like perfect. When you're picking 39, 41, that's perfect right there for the Bears. But I think that ship has sailed unless they have to move up. But that is the guy because I see him as the cleanest center with some positional versatility is what you want. Center only guys can be a little scary unless you get a Zach Frazier, from West Virginia that went to the Steelers, but then you see how well he did. But there's other guys, like there's guys that are more tweeners, but like Jonah Jackson from Arizona had a really good testing day. Actually kind of surprised me how well he tested. He's played tackle at Arizona, but I think he is for sure a guard, but I'd even look at center too for him as well. I'd have to interview him and all that stuff, or hear how he does in interviews. I actually know his college offensive line coach, but he's another guy in the second round that I think to just address that interior offensive line. Jonah Jackson Donovan Jackson, Marcus Mbo from Purdue, or Gray Zabel, and then maybe Josh Connolly, but I see him more as a tackle. But those are 4 guys that I'd be very comfortable, and I actually think it'd be a great day if the Bears got any of those guys at 39-41. But that just still leaves us with our conundrum: who plays center?
Yeah.
So so that's why it's not a perfect answer. So Zabel of that group is the guy that's the most likely to be a center. Other guys, you're like kind of squinting a little bit more. And again, that's just the conundrum that we're in. So if you're going, we have to come out of this draft with a center, or come out of free agency with a center, then it's somehow, some way, shape, or form getting Zabel. Is it moving up? Is it holding the fort and hoping he drops to you? It's one of those, but that would be the cleanest option, I think.
What if it's moving back with your first pick, acquiring more, and then grabbing him, somewhere in the teens, if he's really going to go in the 20s? Like, I don't hate that. Yeah, it'd be your first pick would be a center, but you're adding more draft capital later.
And I think where the Bears are at, it's you got to look at the positions they have right now, or positions filled. Like, they have a lot of good stuff on this roster where it's like you don't have to be desperate to fill up these premium spots. They have receiver talent. They have a quarterback. They have a tackle. I really like Wright. Montez Sweat is a good edge. Maybe they need a prime pass rusher like a Mike Green. Maybe a guy like that. That's another option, maybe in those teens if they wanted to trade back or even go further. But that's the thing is, like, I think they can be pickier than you would expect. And when I say that, pickier being like, hey, we want to fill a need, as opposed to just going truly BPA. So yes, I totally agree with you. Like, the perfect role is like, man, if they could shoot back 10 spots, something like someone gets desperate. In this draft, you might get that because it's going to be there's no consensus on this draft, as you guys, I'm sure, have figured out. And that's why I think it's going to be a wild draft process. And I think there will be maybe some movement as guys go, no, that's my guy, I got to move up and get him. But that could be good for the Bears too. So that's a great option as well. And maybe the one that maybe fits this need perfectly.
Our friend Dane had the Bears taking Tyler Booker in number 10 today in his mock draft.
Yeah.
But he had such a bad testing
it's a little scary.
at the combine. I know his measurements were outstanding. He's a massive guard. But how do you separate tape, what he did at Alabama, versus whoa, this does not look good athletically at the combine?
Yeah, when you draft a guard, it's really when you draft anyone in the first round, you want them to be scheme proof. Hey, no matter who's the coach, as you guys know, coaches change quickly and preferences change quickly. You want the guy, no matter what, he fits in any type of offense. Booker, I really like. He reminds me a lot of Gabe Jackson, who my dad coached in Oakland, or Osiris Torrance, who is the guard for the Bills right now. He's a big phone booth brawler. And so if I think Ben Johnson wants to recreate what the Lions are doing and truly go, hey, we're more gap heavy, that's a great fit, because they like big guys and heavy-handed guys that can create double teams and move guys. But if you're a zone heavy team, maybe like the Bears have been in the past, which I don't think they will be, I don't like him so much. Like, he's not a fit for the Dolphins, at all. I'm sure he's off the board for the Dolphins. So guard is one. It's a little scary for me because I'd rather have my first rounders be wake up and be a good athlete. So that's why I'd say he's not a good fit, but his tape is so good. And his game is not predicated on being an extremely good athlete. It's being on strong and having good hand placement and not getting out of whack. So it's more just a threshold test, as opposed to being, are you an exceptional athlete? Are you good enough? For his game, I think he is good enough. Guys are getting a little crazy with how high they're putting him. I see him more as just a slightly lower than maybe everyone else, but I see him as a first rounder. But I just think that he's not for everybody. For what the Bears, I think they want to do, he is a fit for that. But he is truly, and this is why you want some positional versatility with some of these guys, unless they're a true dude. He's guard only. Guard only. I think he did some center work at the combine as well. But at the NFL level, I just see him truly as a guard only type that can never play tackle or anything in a pinch, which again kind of makes him a narrow type of prospect. But he's a good one. He really is a good one. It's just that he's not for everybody. But if you're fine with your big lineman, like my dad would have been totally fine with him, or some of these other offenses you see throughout the NFL, like I said, the Lions, or even how the Bills are right now, or even how the Rams are right now, because they've molded their offense into a more duo at you type of run scheme. The Bucks, they don't need those extremely good athletes. They just need power players. And he's a power player through and through, and a good one. He really is a good one, but just not for everybody.
Let's do a little either or in free agency. Okay. You're the Bears. You sign Khalil Mack or Josh Sweat?
Oh, Josh Sweat. Just age wise, just because where they're at right now. I think Khalil Mack has higher end play, Stevens now, but I
What
think
if Mack's a 2-year deal? I mean, you're going to
okay.
still pay him pretty good money, but it's one of those 2-year deals. It's really like a 1-year deal.
That's fine too, because you're not committing to him. Like
Yeah.
I think, yeah, Max in the mercenary role now too, so that's totally. Is he okay coming back to Chicago too? Is that we're all good there?
I mean, Chris Emma says he is. I mean,
Okay.
I haven't necessarily heard that connection, but I did write in my notebook coming out of the combine that I'm not against the idea of it. I mean, I
I'd rather
think right now Khalil Mack's still a better player than Sweat.
I'd rather them not. So yeah, so long. Actually, my answer probably would be Matt, because now that I'm thinking on it, I'd rather them not commit to any free agents at edge. Like a 1-year mercenary deal is not committing. You know, that's just a placeholder. I'd rather them go youth there, just kind of the buildup of their defense and everything too. As they're, because now they're getting into a place where it's, you got to time up contracts, you got to time up age, you got to time up a window. So I'd rather get them a young pass rusher or a young opposite edge player. But I mean, either of those guys, but Mac would probably be a better answer for that too. Also, you got to remember too, Dennis Allen is going to have a certain type of edge player. Like even draft wise, like I think if they weren't edge, like in the first round, like Michael Williams is probably more of a fit for them than Mike Green. Michael Williams from Georgia. Because even though he's more toolsy, but Dennis Allen likes his pocket pushers. Like Montez Sweat is like the perfect edge for Dennis Allen. He likes these long pocket pushers. So that's another thing too, is that maybe some fit as far as what the coaches prefer.
You want me to give one? I got one. Kevin Zeitler or Aaron Banks?
Zeitler. Just especially if you're just doing the 1-year deal. Zeitler's had a good year. And now you got the whole familiarity with the offense, yada yada, that all fun. But Zeitler's a pro. Not just saying, my old teammate at Wisconsin. I'm in podcasting. He's still playing. Always took care of himself. So I'm not shocked he had a long career. Like he was like one of the hardest working guys on the team. Always had high nutrition levels, all that stuff. But yeah, so Zeitler, because Zeitler's still a solid starter, like an above average starter, which is again, that's what the Bears need. They need to go from bad to above average at 3 different spots.
Yeah, I think that one makes a lot of sense for the Bears, because it's just he's got the Ben Johnson connection. Yep. He clearly can still play, and you know what? If he does hit a wall because I think he just turned 35, it's not going to be some long-term contract that kills you in the future.
He made $6 million
and honestly,
last year.
You could speak on this since you know him a little bit, just like the presence that he might have in that room. I think is something that they've lacked on that offensive line. Like you looked at last year, they had 8 captains. None of them were offensive linemen.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. No, that's significant. And that's why you want the center to be the leader too. The offense I always come back to is look at what happened to the Falcons when they added Alex Mack from 2015 to 2016. They went from a bad center, hadn't addressed it. We were starting some undrafted free agent guy, practice squad guy. My first year there, I went to the Raiders after that. And then they traded for, I think, Alex Mack, or somehow got him cheap, some way, shape, or form. And, Kyle Shanahan had experience with him, and he just boosted the entire offensive line, just calmed everyone down, got everyone going in the right direction. When my dad was with the Raiders, they signed Rodney Hudson, captain, solid offense, kind of just maybe not he was a good player, but it was like solidified everybody else, that everybody else had their best seasons because he got everyone going on straight. That's why I just always come back to it. And that is hard because Zeitler is a good example because he works hard, and that's like, that goes a long way. And like just showing guys how to be a pro goes a long way. You might have a lot of talent in a room, but sometimes these guys don't know after they lose 3 or 4 games how to act. That's a real thing. So no, that's a great point to just have that veteran presence in there. I like the Zeitler addition for them a lot, especially if they draft another one, maybe sign another one on top of it. Zeitler at least solidifies a lot, and also just good makeup, which I think is so huge. That's why if Will Campbell falls to them, they should be sprinting to the freaking podium because just makeup, get that room. He's so smart, and he's a true leader type. That's like, okay, like just get him in your room. What position he's at, just get him in your room, because he's gonna get everyone else straight and going like the right direction.
Do you think there's a chance he falls because of his arm length, his wingspan? Those are guard measurements for teams.
Yep. I love
what
him.
did Skoronski end up going a couple years ago? 12?
11.
When
right
it was
after
all
the
said
pick.
and done? Yeah.
11. So
Oh,
like, yeah, exactly. No, and now Mimbao from Mizzou had a great testing day too. I'm about to update our big board. I'll file it actually just after this, believe it or not. And I have those guys 5 and 6 on or I'm sorry, 4 and 5 on my big board. Or 5 and
But
6.
he's
One of the
6.
two.
He's 6'4" too. Like, isn't that a little shorter than what some?
It's a little
teams like?
shorter, plenty, and he's got, and they got the length, and that was the thing. Will Campbell's doesn't have a long wingspan, but you can see they're both exceptional athletes, which I think Campbell's been kind of people because he has a funky stance. He's a really good athlete, which he tested like, but that's how he plays. That's why I've been comfortable with him at tackle, is that he can mitigate that length deficiency because he's such a good athlete and such a good technician with his hands and everything. And I'm telling you, like the leadership stuff is real because he's at left tackle. Will Campbell's like pointing out blitzes to Garrett Nussmeier and going, I've never seen a college tackle do that ever. Like go like, hey, we got to change what we're doing here, which speaks to, oh man, he could play center. It's like, you don't take a center top 10. I love centers. You don't take a center top 10. But that just speaks to his intelligence and kind of, again, that makeup stuff, but he absolutely could fall to 10. Because even when I was talking to my dad about this, because I'm going to have him watch all these guys, because I think it's such an interesting class. I just think everybody's just got one little blemish that might hurt him for some teams. And Campbell, he was like, well, he can't play tackle. And I was like, oh, 33. And he goes, 34. Like my dad's threshold was 34 inches, like for tackles. So like even some guys have higher standards. But talking with people on the team, they kind of see it more how I do, where they think he could stay at tackle. But again, it's that high floor of, all right, we can just bump him to the guard. If we have some questions and we can work him at tackle and we can see how he does, but shoot, we just got a good guard right now. That's why I think he could solidify all the offensive line. And the fact that he has versatility is huge because as you guys know, injuries crop up. So the fact that he can bounce to different spots is gigantic. So he absolutely could fall for 10. And I think that would be the ideal pick for the Bears because he can maybe play tackle, but for sure could be a guard. I mean, it could do other things in a pinch as well. So, but yeah, I think that's very realistic. Even if I am high on him, that's his range anyways.
Can you explain, like, I think when fans hear that, like, the size difference in the arm length is like a quarter of an inch or an inch at most, like why it matters so much for some teams, some evaluators, even your father, a longtime offensive line coach, Mike Tice, like, why does he want 34-inch arms? Like, what's the difference that maybe all of us can't see, maybe when it comes to real play?
Yeah, it's really how you recover. Well, I'll start first in the run game. Run game is where you see the arm length matter more. And just, you see, just watch Montez Sweat play. He just long arms a guy and he holds him away, like a big brother, keeping the guy like right here on his head like this. And so when you have a tackle that maybe doesn't have that length, the run game can get a little edgy. Where it's like, okay, they have to get closer and be a sawed-off shotgun, and then the guy can beat them inside. And if they're not a good enough athlete, that can kind of create edginess, is a term my dad would always use, and just not clean in the run game. So that's where, especially in the NFL, everyone's long. Everyone is long or an exceptional athlete or both, or very, very strong that can mitigate that. So that's why it's just more of a threshold thing that you're like, all right, you have to be exceptional in other areas. And that's why I think he is the athlete. Pass game wise, it's more of how you reset and recover. So if the guy comes in you and bull rushes, and you can see this happen with Josh Sweat and Joe Tooney in the Super Bowl. Josh Sweat's super long. Joe Tooney's got short arms, but he's playing left tackle in a pinch. He just gets blown back. Doesn't matter how good of his technique is, how tight his hands are, how quick he gets off the ball. Physics are physics. and a guy with some momentum and really long arms it doesn't matter how good your technique is, you're getting pushed back. And these guys and Campbell and maybe guys that are shorter arms, Rashawn Slater, left tackle for the Chargers, they're such good athletes and such good technicians that they can kind of pop the hand and reset, but they're already giving up ground when they do that. Yes, they technically win, but it's not that perfect clean pocket that you're going for. So that's where some offensive line coaches just go, screw it. We're not even dealing with it. If he's a good enough athlete or not, whatever. We already have the length and we'll figure it out with the guys that actually have the length. So that's why they have that threshold thing. And that's why it's like, oh, quarter inch. It's more just people trying to save themselves rather than have to squint. They're just trying to make it cut and dried as much as they can. That's why Campbell's so interesting, because I'm anyone that's ever listened to me or followed me, I'm all about size and all about length too. And that's why Campbell's so funny for me, because I really like him, even though he's not my perfect kind of tackle. So that's why that comes up so much. It's just how you mitigate that, how you recover, and some guys that if they get pushed back, they can recover with quickness or anything like that. But sometimes you don't get a chance to if you just don't have the length and the other guy does.
So let me paint this scenario for you, because the Bears tackle situation, at least left tackle, I think is very interesting. So obviously Darnell
What
Wright.
do you guys
like
think of
him.
Braxton Jones? Actually, I don't
think he's gonna be ready for training camp.
Well, that's another thing. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. He's coming off a bad leg injury, and I think I think the Bears still like him, but I think we're getting to the point where, is this guy already at his ceiling, or new offensive line coach comes in, Dan Rouchar, you could still get something out. I think all of these options are on the table here with Braxton Jones, but you have this leg injury. And so this is where I'm putting this all together for you, Nate, to sort out, because I think this might be the situation the Bears are in a few months. They also like Karan Amagaji, who they drafted last year, but wasn't ready.
No,
probably shouldn't have played. When he played, it looked awful. So
which was expected. He was supposed to be a huge project. Yes, exactly. Right. So
without a doubt. So if you draft Will Campbell, Braxton Jones isn't ready. Do you say, all right, Karan, Will Campbell, you compete here in the spring in OTAs. Obviously pads aren't on and all that, but just kind of see how that starts to look, and then wait on Braxton Jones to kind of get in the mix. Maybe Will Campbell runs away with it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe Braxton Jones keeps on to his job, and you say, okay, we'll move into guard. I guess my point of bringing all this big hypothetical is I kind of like that. I like the idea of adding Campbell to the mix, knowing that, however it sorts out at left tackle, at minimum, you probably can kick him inside to guard.
No, I think your head's exactly how it should be. Like, these guys should cross train, and the best line coaches do. They cross train their guys. And I think also, no, that's great, because then you're just going to get your best 5 out there. And I think that's why I like Campbell so much. It's why I like Graham Barton last year from the Bucks, is that he's going to allow you to get your best 5 out because he has positional versatility. It reminds me of what happened with the Cowboys when they drafted recently Tyler Smith from Tulsa. He's their left guard now. But his rookie year, he had to play left tackle because Tyron Smith was injured again. And so he played left tackle, and he did well. And he got great reps. And as soon as Tyron Smith was healthy and came back, and I'm not saying, Braxton Jones is Tyron Smith, but as soon as he came back, then Tyler Smith bumped to left guard, and now he's one of the best guards in the NFL. And still had to play some tackle this year as well. But having that is huge. Be able to just do both. So I'm right there with you that, again, I'm lay this all flat. Will Campbell should be, if he is available at 10, the Bears should be drafting him with a huge, gigantic smile because of what we're laying out right here. That's what he allows. He allows that. Oh yeah, he could play left tackle, but guess what? Jones might be a B or B- at left tackle, and Campbell's an A at guard. Okay, that's great. Or Campbell's a B+ at left tackle, and then now we have a B- at left guard, whoever it is, just insert name here. But again, that's better than D+ and C-. No matter what, it's giving you the best of the 2 options. So again, that's why I think that's a great plan if it just unfolds that way too. Competition's good, and positional versatility is very good.
When you look at Ben Johnson's offense in Detroit, and I know he's mentioned that we're going to try to tailor some things to what we have here in Chicago, but the running back position is so interesting to me because it's a good draft year, and I know DeAndre Swift has that history with Ben Johnson. Who are your favorite fits? Like, give me your top 3 or 4 that you like for a Ben Johnson offense.
Okay, first, all right, my guy, my day 2 guy is Devin Neal, running back from Kansas. And I would describe him as more of a juiced up Devin Singletary. I think is my best comparison. Maybe a little Ray Rice-ish, without the off field. And I think Neal is a 3-down guy, 4-down guy. He's great in pass pro. He's good hands. But also is just, doesn't have the high end speed, which he tested. I think he tested like a high 4.5s, which matches on film. Very efficient runner, great vision, great tempoing, great guy. I would love him on like round 3. Like that's the guy I kind of identified. Maybe, pick 72 is kind of like the perfect spot for him. A guy, if you're going like same round 3, round 4-ish, another guy I like is Damian Martinez from Miami. If they want, if you notice those Lions teams the last few years, and again, even though Ben Johnson doesn't have a lot of experience there, he is a Sean Payton guy through proxy, is that they have two backs. Like that's kind of just their thing. They like to maybe have that 60-40 split. They like the thumper and they like the speed guy. So Damian Martinez can be that speed guy, can be that Jamal Williams, could be that David Montgomery, I guess a little bit, be that Mark Ingram, for those old Saints teams. Like that's another guy too, as maybe a day two guy. But man, this class is really fun. I mean, shoot, either the Ohio State guys, Travion Henderson would be the speed guy, and then Quinshon Judkins would be the every down kind of guy, bruiser type of guy. He tested really well as well. His playing style is like he's a doubles hitter. That's how I've been describing Quinshon Judkins. I really liked him. I had him over Genty before the season, and then Genty had his big year, and that was like, okay, let's swap those one around. But he's very talented, and a guy that I think would be ideal in maybe a 60-40, 50-50 split backfield, and could take hard touches, can receive, can do all that good thing. So he's another guy on day two that I would really like for this offense, because he's an efficient runner and does a lot of things well in a lot of different types of run schemes. So Judkins, Neal, Martinez, those are the guys I've kind of identified for anybody, but especially for the Bears. Caleb Johnson, maybe I'm so focused on O-line with for the Bears in round two that maybe I haven't thought of. Maybe that's his range is kind of early round two from Iowa, and Hampton from North Carolina seems like he's going round one now. Cat's out of the bag with him. So, but man, there's a lot of day two backs that are pretty exciting, and fit for any type of offense. But those guys, I idealistically have roles that make sense for what Ben Johnson likes.
Love it. Johns, you got anything else?
No, we're good.
Man.
You? I mean, I could go all day.
We got keep going. I got time. We're good. You need a speedy receiver. I mean, that's another one I've identified. Oh, another guy. Hold on. I had some notes for this. Other guy, number 10, Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon. Not exactly a team need, but Billings
was he the
really
guy?
well
Nate, was he the guy that missed the Wisconsin game? Remember Oregon was down one of their big D linemen. I'm forgetting if it was him or
no, I can't remember him. There's another guy they have, and I can't remember that. I've tried to black that game out.
Yeah.
God, they should have won that game. But Derek Harmon's really good. But Michigan.
I think it was Jordan Birch who was out that game.
Birch, yeah, it's the other guy, Birch. Okay, good.
He's the edge rusher. Got it.
Yep, and big edge rusher guy. Yeah, Billings played well for him. Getting a little older. Dexter's had stretches, but again, if you want to address the defensive line, don't think he's like a high sack guy. He just does everything well, and he can line up all over the defense. So Allen gets a little creative with the stuff. Can play 3 tech, can 2 gap, can shoot the gap, plays the run really well. I want to say my comparison for him was a former Bear. 1 second here. See, this is just how the brain works right now. Where are you at? Harmon. Akeem Hicks was my comparison for him. So
one of my favorites.
Yes. And same kind, that's lofty praise. Hicks is a badass. But that type of skill set where he just plays run really well, can be a contributor against the pass as well, too. So that, it's not edge, it's not O-line, but that's another interesting defensive tackle I like for the Bears, maybe at pick 10.
2 quarterbacks top 10.
I think it's just gonna be one.
Cam Ward.
This is one of the most
Cam Ward goes
boring.
I think that's what happens, and then it gets interesting.
Doesn't this feel like one of the most boring quarterback carousels in recent memory?
No,
I mean, I feel like every year
the Kenny Pickett year was really boring.
Yeah, but I'm not just talking about draft. I'm also talking about
free agency wise.
I'm talking about free agency too. I'm talking about the whole thing. Like it's just
the corpse of Kirk Cousins doesn't get you excited, or Aaron Rodgers and his baggage, or
all
Russell
eyes are
Wilson,
on Sam
all these guys.
Darnold right now. What are we doing?
I know. That's a giant domino, and it's like, yeah. I know the Stafford stuff at least was exciting for a couple days. At least I was like, it got the brain percolating a little bit, trying to figure out how
that fight at a Starbucks in Indianapolis.
Dude, St. Elmo's was a buzz after that.
Yeah,
because there's it's like all anyone was talking about was that after that.
I somehow didn't hear about it until I was at Prime later.
Really?
Which was I was off my phone a lot, just talking to people.
Yeah, I was on my phone as much either. It was kind of,
Yeah, I don't know. I just
until
missed all that until
Orms
later in the
died.
night, and then I was like, "Wait, what happened?"
Oh, I know. I just love that happened at a Starbucks.
Yeah, at the Starbucks.
Considering the characters involved.
Fantastic. All right, Nate. Great stuff as always. Hopefully we can get you back on before the draft
Yes.
at some point. But we always love talking to you, man.
Whenever you guys want me. I love you guys. See ya.
Thanks,
right.
Nate. All right, Adam. So if I would tell you, based on everything you just heard from Nate, let's play out this scenario. You're able to sign Kevin Zeitler for like a 1 year, say 1 year, $8 million contract, right? Throw some incentives in there. Do you do it? Is he your starting right guard? And then later on, if Will Campbell is there at number 10, based on everything we just talked about with Nate, do you make that selection as well?
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that I think has changed, just slightly since we talked to Nate this morning, since this trade went down. To answer your first question, yes, I'd still sign Zeitler. It's a good fit. I think it's and again, it's a Ben Johnson connection too. So we already saw one move today. And I've been saying that for weeks now, and probably will continue to over the next couple of weeks. Like there's going to be plenty of those types of acquisitions here. There's even some low level like practice squad addition a few weeks ago, or one of those future reserve contracts with some ex-Lions player. Like, so there's going to be plenty of that going on. I don't think this prevents you from drafting Will Campbell though. Like if you sign Zeitler, first of all, I still check in with Trey Smith until that door's completely shut. But assuming it's shut, Zeitler right guard, and then that scenario I gave Nate earlier, I would still do it. Like, you can't mess around with your line anymore. You got to have multiple options. You got to have flexibility with like real players. Can't just be like last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Maybe it was
as opposed to these fake players that we've been signing for years.
Was it last year or 2 years ago or both years where it's like we're pretty deep into training camp and we're still hearing from the O-line coach and the offense coordinator every day? Well, we're just trying to find the best five. Well, it means you don't have five.
Yeah.
That's what it means. So I'd much rather start with 6 or 7. And none of this is really answered the center question at all, which I still think is going to be an area where the Bears make a big splash.
Well, especially in the draft. Later in the draft, unless the Dahlman scenario plays out for the Bears. But you heard Nate. Nate's not too high in him. We'll see where the Bears are. Maybe this move and the Zeitler signing kind of prevents another acquisition, especially if you need help on the defensive trenches, which we all know the Bears do.
Right. But yeah, no, I'd still draft Will Campbell because maybe he is the left tackle still. And if he's not, well, both of the Jonah Jackson and potentially is Kevin Zeitler signed. Those are 1 year. Those are basically 1 year commitments.
Yeah. And then if he's not there, I like the scenario that Nate brought up just in terms of trading back and gaining some value.
Yeah.
Just based on what the board values and what your own preferences are.
If you trade back and draft Gray Zabel, I think that's a great move.
Yeah, and you're adding capital. And you still got the 39th and 41st picks to make moves in your offensive line as well.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, in the meantime, we got to solve the conspiracy theory of the Bears making moves every time the show ends. It's one thing when we're live.
Right,
it's another when we're not live.
Give it 10 seconds. Just fill the air with something. Let's see if something else comes through here.
But they don't know that we're recording right now, unless there's cameras in here I don't know about.
It's true. Maybe
it's weird. All right. Thanks to Nate Tice for coming on. Thanks to our producer Katie Langen for adjusting today. Doing a lot of editing.
I can't tell you who our guest is going to be on Thursday.
Oh, has this been confirmed?
This has been confirmed. I don't think you even know this one yet.
I don't.
Matt Bowen, our friend from ESPN, will be joining us on Thursday to discuss, well, Jonah Jackson, Jack Sanborn, and more. Oh, plenty of draft stuff too. All before free agency begins on Monday.
Love it. Love it. Love talking to Matt. That'll be a lot of fun. We used to talk to Matt every year at the Combine. So now we talk to him a week after the Combine. It'll be perfect.
Here we go.
So stay tuned for that. Please like this video on YouTube. Hit subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast, please rate and review. And if you don't mind doing us a favor, if you're a podcast listener, go hit subscribe on YouTube. If you're a YouTube watcher, please go subscribe to the podcast too. It helps grow the show. Greatly appreciate all the love and support. Go to hogeandjahns.com for all of our merch and more. We'll be back Thursday. Talk to Matt Bowen. Can't wait for that. We'll talk to you then.
See ya.